to handle disputes, conflicts that can be time consuming. They can damage relationships, tarnish reputations, and eat up enormous sums of money and time. So we thought, why not have a session on how to effectively resolve these disputes without the need for an adversarial approach. We are privileged to have Ms. Rukmini Menon and Ms. Shanta Chalapa on our show today, who will take us through one of these mechanisms, mediation as a form of dispute resolution. The first speaker is Ms. Rukmini Menon, who is a director and an in-house senior mediator at CAMP. Besides being a practicing mediator, Rukmini is also a lawyer with professional experience spanning 30 years. Her practice has been focused on indirect tax matters, including central excise, service tax, and customs. She also handles all commercial disputes. Rukmini successfully runs her professional practice called Menon and Menon Associates, which she founded in 1994. She has received training in mediation from Bangalore Mediation Center and at the Center for Advanced Mediation Practice, CAMP. She has also trained with the Singapore International Mediation Center. Ms. Menon is also an independent director on the board of Page Industries and Maini Precision Products Limited and is appointed to the UNDP panel of mediators for workplace disputes across India. Rukmini, welcome to the show.
Hi. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Sandhya, thank you so much for organizing this this program and giving us an opportunity to address this gathering. So since Sandhya has already introduced me, I don't think I'll go into another introduction, but however, I'd like to introduce my colleague Shanta Chalapa. Shanta, can you please put on your video for a moment?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'm doing it.
Okay, Shanta is a senior mediator who's been in the mediation field since 2007, right, Shanta?
Yeah. And
since 2007. She, both Shanta and I are directors and in-house mediators with a private mediation center called CAMP, based out of Bangalore. Shanta is also one of the original or starting mediators at the Bangalore Mediation Center, which is the Court NX Mediation Center. Shanta is also a trainer in mediation. Shanta left a practice of 35 years. She was practicing in real estate and commercial matters, just to concentrate on mediation a couple of years back. Shanta has been a great support for all of us at CAMP. Before I start off on the subject, I'll also just take 2 minutes of your time to introduce our institution, CAMP. As I told you, both Shanta and I are directors at CAMP, which is a private mediation center, which was founded by Leila Olapalli in 2015. Leila is one of the founder coordinator members of the Bangalore Mediation Center, who also has a practice of 30 years, which she left to set up this organization. Shanta and I have been in this organization since its inception. Now I'll get on with the subject for today. As Sandhya put it, very nicely, conflict is a part of our lives, and conflict is a very necessary part of our lives. Conflict is not always bad. Conflict is required. Now, it depends on how conflict is handled. If conflict is just sort of, ignored, or conflict is handled badly, that is when a conflict becomes a dispute. And that's mainly when does this happen? When there is a breakdown of communication between the parties involved, and which happens because of the egos of the parties. Now, these conflicts, disputes are not, in our everyday personal life, they are a part of a professional life. I'll give you simple examples in our personal life, or simple things like between spouses. I suppose all wives grumble about husbands leaving their wet towels on the beds, leaving clothes around, not picking up things behind them. The wives, similarly, the husbands saying that, you never put off the lights, never put off the fans, you're careless. I mean, these are things which I hear on a regular basis. So I assume it's a common thing. Now, these are very minor complaints, but these minor complaints, you'd be surprised to know how they sometimes lead to major disputes between the couple. Similarly, in workplace or any sort of a commercial, if you like, there are two companies interacting with each other as vendor and customer. If something goes wrong, if they don't talk it out, if they let the egos come in the way, these conflicts become very nasty disputes and spoils business relationships. Now, what is normally done when these disputes crop up? Generally, most people, be it in their personal life or be it in their work life or corporates, the first thing they do is, okay, I think I need to go to court. I'll go to a lawyer so that I can take the other guy to court and let me see what he'll do. You get aggressive. So here in commercial matters, of course, you have the option of arbitration, which is as long drawn as litigation. Now, we are not here to run down the systems. No, the judicial system. We are here because our judicial system is literally crumbling down under the weight of pending cases. And so there is this very viable option of mediation. What exactly is this mediation? Mediation is not new to India, not at all new. If you look at our mythology, take it back to Mahabharata, Lord Sri Krishna suggested mediation to the Kauravas and the Pandavas. Only if they had listened to him, they wouldn't have been all these deaths. No, it could have been sorted out. They chose to do, and they went on with what we know as the Great War of Mahabharata. Coming to recent times, if you look at the Reliance brothers, Mukesh Ambani and Anil Ambani, a couple of years back, maybe about 10 years back, I don't remember the exact time, they were nearly, they were at loggerheads. It almost came to them approaching court against each other. Their mother stepped in and said, no, I'm going to get this dispute mediated. And somebody stepped in, a very well-known banker stepped in, and the case was mediated. What happened? They settled all their disputes. The family stayed together. So that is the magic of mediation. It sustains relationships. Now, on a much lighter vein, mediation is always confused with meditation. I mean, I distinctly remember this incident. As I was saying, Shanta and I are also mediators in the Bangalore Mediation Center, which is the Court NX Mediation Center. So one day, this is on Lalbagh Road. So one day when I walked into the center, there's this young girl sitting and crying very bitterly with nobody around her. So I just felt bad. I walked up to her and asked her, what happened? Why are you crying? So she said, I hope all of you understand Hindi because I'm going to say this in Hindi. She says, Madam, मेरे को English नहीं आता है, मैं हिंदी में बात करूं? So I said, yeah, please, क्या हुआ? She said, मेरे पति मेरे को तलाक दे रहे हैं और मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा क्यों तलाक दे रहे हैं और वो जज साहब ने हमको इधर भेज दिया है. I said, हाँ इधर ही भेजेंगे ना. नहीं, वो बोलते हैं मेडिटेशन करना है. मेरी शादी टूट रही है और ये लोग मेडिटेशन क्यों करवा रहे हैं हमसे? मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. I mean, I could barely control my laughter, but then this girl was so upset, so I sat down there with her and I explained, ये meditation नहीं है, mediation है. So she said, वो क्या होता है? So I said, ये सुलह करवाएंगे आपकी. I mean, हो सकता है तो. So then she was greatly relieved, that they hadn't sent her for a meditation session. Now coming to, another incident at our mediation center camp. One day, I think it was Leila who walked in, and there was this young couple there. So she asked them, yeah, who are you waiting for? Do you have an appointment? And they were surprisingly there with their, yoga mats. They said, yes, we want to know when these sessions start. She said, what sessions? They said, meditation sessions. She said, no, 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 no. This is not meditation, it's mediation. They all had a good laugh. In the bargain, the couple learned about the process of mediation and went away, promising that if any dispute arose in their lives, they would definitely choose mediation. Now, what exactly is mediation? Mediation is nothing but a facilitated negotiation where a neutral third party, the mediator, helps the parties in the dispute settle the dispute on their own terms and conditions. The mediator is not going to tell party A and B, listen, I think you should do this, this will be better for you. No. What the mediator does is, by way of facilitation, help the parties, generate options, see the issues in a totally different perspective, understand each other better. So they're able to generate options to settle their dispute. This is self-determination. And self-determination is one of the most important aspects of mediation. Besides that, of course, I'm going to, after this presentation, I'm going to show you some slides highlighting the important aspects of mediation. But I just shortly want to talk about it. Now, for example, the other aspects are, it's a voluntary process. Voluntary, what do I mean by saying it's voluntary? In the sense that if a case is A files a case against B. Now, if B gets notice from the court, B has no option but to appear before court, otherwise the court proceeds ex parte. So it's not voluntary, whereas in mediation, both parties should want to come in for the process. If either party does not, then the process cannot go on. Not only that, suppose after coming in for mediation, one of the parties after 2-3 sessions says, you know what, I don't think I'm very comfortable with this process. I think, I need to go to court. The mediation will never tell the parties that, no, you have to sit here, you have to mediate. No, it's left to the parties whether they want to stay on, whether they want to go. Third thing, most important, is the confidentiality of the process. Nothing which is said in a mediation can be relied upon by either of the two parties in any other proceedings in case the mediation does not succeed. Because mediation is one process where the parties are allowed to talk. They come in with the lawyers, no doubt, but it is the parties who present their dispute to the mediator. So if they come out with a lot of information, if the other side is not aware, they cannot take an undue advantage of it if this process does not work and they go to court. Similarly, there is confidentiality on the mediator also. The mediator cannot talk about any dispute. None of us talk about the cases we settle. We just mention the type of case. But we don't say A and B had come to me for this dispute. This is how this was settled on these terms and conditions. No, it's not. This cannot be done because it is confidential. These are some of the very important aspects of mediation. And when we go through the slides, another thing is that as compared to litigation, mediation is very cost effective and time effective. We'll go into the details when we go over the slides. Now, the other thing is, I just want to, before we start with the slides, I'd like to share one or two stories regarding the mediations we've done, of course, for the sake of maintaining confidentiality. I'm not going to take any names. I'm just going to sort of tell you what it was. Now, there was this case I did at the Bangalore Mediation Center where these neighbors had been fighting for almost 10 years. They'd been very good friends. They were family friends. Unfortunately, they fell apart because according to A, he said B has, built a wall and his house is projecting into my part of the land. And believe it or not, they fought in court for 10 years. Their relationships obviously sort of went haywire. The children stopped talking to each other. The wives, who were very good friends, had nothing to do with each other. In mediation, we sat, talked. I talked to the parties, I talked to the wives. It was so amazing that after about 4 sessions of mediation, the parties listening to each other, the parties reached a settlement. And they were so happy about it. They said we wish they had an opportunity of mediating before, but they did not take it because their egos did not permit them to take it up. They really regretted the fact, but they went off very happy with the terms, withdrew the case. They were back to, they said, my God, we've destroyed our friendship for this. It was so bad. The wives, they got together as families. And as a mediator, such a satisfying experience to see something like this happen. And believe it or not, after 10 years, this was happening. Now, another case I would like to bring before you is, Leila always talks about it. There was this case, again, I think at the Bangalore Mediation Center, where this very young mother, she had sued the electricity authorities because her husband, who was an engineer or something over there at Mysore, he got electrocuted and he unfortunately passed away. The electricity authorities had told her that we will give you compensation, everything, but she was not happy with the compensation. She had 2 little girls that time. And she said nothing doing. When they came in for mediation, Leila was trying to tell her, we do what is called a reality check in mediation, was trying to tell her if she goes to court, what's the kind of time she's going to take and all that. She was very adamant and she went off. Then obviously Leila lost track. After about, Leila tells us a story that after about 10 years, when we started the center, one day when she came into office, there was this slightly elderly looking person. Please note the words elderly looking person, who was waiting with a bouquet of flowers and a box of sweets. So Leila said, yeah, who's this? She said, oh, you did not recognize me. I'm the same person. I have won my case in the Supreme Court. It was 10 or 12, but what victory is this? When I had to spend time with my children, I was busy running up and down to courts. I had no time to spend with them. In fact, if I had taken the money that time, I'm sure my girls would have had a better education. I have aged beyond my years. The stress has been too much for me. So I just wish I had taken your advice and not been adamant and settled. She said, but now, too much water under the bridge, there's nothing much I can do. So these are 2 contrasting cases which I wanted to, highlight. Now, I'd just like to, as Sandhya said, whatever questions you have, please put them in the chat box, especially after seeing the slides which we're going to put before you now. Sandhya, can you start the slides?
Say the slides.
Started from the beginning, Sandhya. Yeah, Sandhya, you're somewhere in between. So can you start from the beginning, please? What is mediation? This is somewhere in the middle. Yeah, why mediation? Yeah, so I'm showing you a couple of slides which are going to highlight these aspects of mediation, what I was talking about. Yeah, Sandhya, next slide, please. Yeah, party autonomy. What does it say? This is for the parties. You do the talking, you do the brainstorming, you make the offers, you make the counter offers, you make the decisions. When they say you, they mean the parties. As I said in the beginning, this is a party-centric process. it is the parties. Unlike in court, parties, the judge never asks until unless they're being cross-examined, the parties to talk. Who talks? It is the advocates who talk. So they never get an opportunity. So this opportunity is wonderful for them because they come to a decision which suits them the best. So party autonomy. Sandhya, have you missed out a slide before this? Or can I have a look at the next slide, please? Yeah, a neutral third party. As I said, mediation is done by a neutral third party. It's conducted by a neutral third party, the mediator, who, unlike a judge, never takes a decision on behalf of the party. So I just read this out to you. Upon extensive research and based on your preference, the mediator's background, you get to choose a mediator. As per your comfort level, you can also change your mediator during the mediation. See, that's the greatest thing. You cannot you can choose an arbitrator in a commercial dispute. You cannot choose a judge, but you can choose a mediator, especially in our center. The mediator, we have a panel of mediators. We tell the parties, you choose the mediator who you think you will be comfortable with and who you think will be able to conduct your dispute and help you negotiate. And as it says over here, for any reason, if the parties do not feel comfortable with the mediator, during the process, they can ask for change of mediator. Yeah, thank you, Sandhya. Next, please. This is a voluntary process. As I had highlighted this, the parties cannot be forced to start a mediation. Normally what happens at our center is one party comes to us and says, listen, we came across your website. We have this dispute. We were thinking whether, it would be suitable for mediation. And then they request us to approach the other side. So we approach the other side, tell them about the good parts, like what I have been talking over here as to why mediation would be a preferable option, as compared to litigation or arbitration, and asking them to try it out. So if these people, the other side comes in, and during the mediation, if either of the two parties feel that they do not want to stay in mediation and they rather go to court, they have the full authority to do so. The mediator cannot force them to stay. You cannot be forced, blackmailed to begin a mediation, participate in a mediation, or settle during a mediation. Voluntary consent is the key feature of mediation. Next one, please, Sandhya. Confidentiality. This is something I talked about. No private information is admissible in court as evidence. Mediator cannot be called in as a witness to testify in court. Confidentiality agreement is signed before beginning the process. Now, as I had briefly told you before we started the session, this aspect is very important, because when people come in for mediation, since it's a very informal process, though under the shadow of law, parties feel that, if some information is relied upon by the other party at another forum, so their fears are put to rest when they are made to sign an agreement to mediation, which has a confidentiality clause. And confidentiality cannot be breached by either of the parties in the dispute, or the mediator or their advocates. Next slide, please, Sandhya. Time efficient. Now, this may look very unbelievable, but it's a fact. A court proceeding could easily take 8 years, 10 years, 12 years. And why is that? As I told you, there's too much of a pendency before our courts there is shortage of judges. I think you all must be seeing all this in the newspapers. Now, and because of this pandemic, the situation has become much worse because this is added to the pendency. They are taking up, though they're trying their best, they're having virtual hearings, but only urgent matters are being taken up. So since March, the regular matters are just piling up. So what happens is that cases go on in the first level. When it gets over, one party loses, one party wins. So the losing party obviously is upset and wants to take it up in appeal. Now, appeals, there are different levels. You could go up to the High Court, you can go up to the Supreme Court. And God forbid, if you go up to the Supreme Court, you are, 15 years is gone then. As I told you about the, case regarding involving that lady. And this is like in a mediation, because the parties are choosing the terms on which they're settling, it's a win-win. There's a finality to mediation. So nobody will file an appeal. I mean, in the both at camp and at camp, we've never had any settlement reopened in the last 5 years. In the Bangalore Mediation Center, where mostly the matters are, matrimonial matters are taken up, there is, I think, since 2007, 1% matters have been reopened. And believe it or not, in mediation, the lifespan of a mediation is 10 to 16 hours. The mediations are day-to-day sessions. It could be it could be full-day sessions. Usually at camp, before the pandemic, when we were having actually face-to-face mediations, the maximum time taken is maybe 1 day when it's an 8-hour session, maybe another half a day the next day. That's about it all. Because by that time, people know. And then one thing I must tell you is, before the sessions start, a lot of convening is done by the mediator and the court case manager, talking to the parties, telling them about mediation, collecting the required documents, and which are needed for the mediation and all that. So all put together, if you take it, it is maybe 20 hours. That's about it all. And you compare it. It sounds unbelievable, but this is a fact because we've seen this. We all been in court and we've been doing mediations. This is maybe 20 hours and 15 years for sure if you go to the Supreme Court. Sandhya, the next slide, please. Cost effective. Now, cost effective is obviously connected to time. When you're going to spend so much time in court, in litigation, even arbitration, that's one thing I forgot to mention. Arbitration also takes, though according to the Arbitration Act, now it's 18 months, but our arbitrators are all retired Supreme Court judges. So it's a very, very expensive affair, and it's mostly corporate commercial matters which come up in arbitrations. Now, court, if you'll be paying your lawyers at each level, and that becomes really expensive. A minimum, even say for something like we have done an analysis, something for recovery. A simple thing of recovery of say some amount like 35 lakhs. If you go up to the Supreme Court, believe it or not, it takes about 12 years and it takes about 20 to 21 lakhs in recovering an amount of 35 lakhs. In mediation, it is never more than 2 lakhs because it's the mediator's fees and what we have something called which is a very minimal fees of the admin fees. That's about it all. That is mainly why, because since it is the parties who are coming to a settlement on their terms. So because the time taken is about 20 hours, 25, even if you take it as 2 months, the amount never goes up to more than 2 lakhs, which is including the mediator's fees as well as the fees paid to the lawyers by the respective parties. Next, Sandhya. It's a flexible process. This we say because, see, it's a party-centric process, and it is the whole thing is designed. The whole process is designed by the parties and the mediator to suit the parties, mainly to suit the parties. Now in court, you cannot, whatever date the court gives, you're sick or whatever it is, your lawyer has to be there. And if you are summoned, if you're not able to go, then another date. So dates and dates and dates. Whereas mediation, what happens is, if you're unable to attend a session, you inform before and you can manage. Now, what happens in mediations is, whether it's face-to-face or online, at the moment we are doing all online mediation. What happens even in a face-to-face mediation, where what immediately comes to my mind is a workplace dispute we did at camp, I think sometime towards the end of 2019, between two departmental heads in a big organization, where they told that we do not want to see each other. So fine, you don't see each other. We had, the mediator, the concerned mediator had separate sessions with them. And the dispute was settled ultimately after 2, 3, 4 sessions. And believe it or not, they left together in a shared taxi, ultimately when the terms were settled. And not only that, the person who was most happy was the employer, because these were very senior people. And it would have been a big blow to the company if they had to let one of them go. In a court, it would have gone on for years. The employer would have suffered, these two employees would have suffered, and their relationship would have become very, very bitter. That's one more thing that, I hope you understand from what I've been saying, that mediation helps parties sustain their relationships. Like I told you about the Ambani brothers. Sandhya, next slide, please. Yeah, just the law, no case. In court, how do we fight? How do we argue as advocates? We set out our facts, and then we rely upon previous decisions, and to sustain, to sort of uphold our contentions made in the case. In mediation, since it's a confidential process, we cannot turn around. The parties cannot say, okay, but in a similar case like that, the same thing happened, I want the same relief. No. And it's very, since it's informal, you don't have that kind of papers and evidence and things like that. And here the focus is on the underlying interests of the parties, their emotions. And they come out with creative solutions to resolve their own issues. The settlements reached have to be under the shadow of law. They need not have to be, very popular or anything. Whatever the parties want, how they want it. So far as it is within the shadow of law. Yeah, next slide. It's as I told, informal and paperless. Mediation discourages documentation and formalities. In court, we have to file documents, we have to prove the documents, we have to make sure original documents are filed. Nothing like that in mediation. We try to make the mediation brief as short and as crisp as possible. And it's a very informal kind of a process. So in our center, an invitation is mailed, acceptance is mailed, and we start the mediation. And the parties, you don't have the call. In court, how do we address judges, your lordships? Here it's nothing. The parties address the mediators by name. The mediator addresses the parties and the advocates by name. It's a very informal process. Next slide, please. Preserves relationships. As I told you, and I gave you an example about the Ambani brothers. Mediation helps disputing parties repair personal and professional relationships. Mediation helps disputing parties bridge communication gaps and brings closure to the misunderstandings. And this is extremely important. As I told you about the two neighbors who had been fighting for 10 years. As I told you about the Ambani brothers. Even in the case of the departmental heads. they sustain, the relationship was sustained. And it's very important, be it personal or be it workplace relationship, that if relationships are sustained, it's better for everybody. Next one, please, Sandhya. Now, mental health. Now, what happens in court? If you are in court, it's very stressful for, for advocates, for litigating lawyers. It's a part and parcel of their life. But for the parties to the disputes, it's very, very stressful. Coming day in and day out, taking time off from their work, and even if you're not working, your business suffers, everything suffers. And it really tells on you. I've known parties who, have had their PPs go up because of the length of the litigation. So for your mental health, like an opportunity to speak and to be heard by the other side, a safe place to express emotions and expectations. No assumptions, no anxieties, it's peaceful and productive. Mediation is somewhere where, we ensure that wherever we are having mediations, it's setting is so informal, and that the parties are made to feel comfortable. There is nothing very rigid or formal that you have to behave like this. You cannot, of course, total parliamentary language, no abusing each other, all that is there. But, it's a very informal setting where parties fit in very easily and make themselves comfortable. So I think that was the last slide, Sandhya.
Yeah, that was. This is the last slide.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, now I think we can go on to the, if you, I hope you all have questions. So please do come out with you can put them in the chat box.
It's already there, Money?
Yeah.
It's there?
It is there, Money.
I can't see the chat box. That's I always have this with my.
Sure, I'll read it out.
My chat box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rukmini, that for taking us through. I think this is the deed of the hour, as Mr. Srinivasan said. On a daily basis, we have been facing a lot of issues, a lot of disputes, especially as RWAs. We are called upon to, resolve a lot of things. I think mediation seems to be a very cost-effective and solution, and a quicker solution, which doesn't really, be a very adversarial approach. So thank you for taking us through this. So there are a couple of queries which have come up, largely from associations who are impacted. So the first one is from Uma Pai, ethical aspect.
Yeah. What's the question?
Ethical aspect. Uma.
Technical aspect?
Yeah. Uma,
what's the question?
It says ethical aspect.
Ethical aspect.
Is there
now, Uma, can you elaborate a little bit on the I mean, what do you mean by ethical aspect?
Happening now in the small apartment which I am staying. Obviously, I'm not trying to point a finger at anybody, but because of the COVID times, the PG boys, and girls who stay here, though we tell them don't do it, they sometimes bring their partners. We don't know whether they're married, not married, and we are denying admission. They are getting angry with the RWA, with the association. So right now I'm talking about COVID times. How are we going to handle this? How do we educate those educated IT people?
Oh, this is, I mean, I'll say something and I'll also, after my addressing your question, I'll also like Shanta to put in her thoughts. This is very, very apt for a mediation. I mean, you see, you are seeing it from your perspective, they're seeing it from their perspective. So when a neutral third party comes and explains to them as to why the association is objecting to their coming in. See, in normal circumstances, I don't think any apartment can say you cannot, in today's time, a young girl or a boy bringing in a girlfriend or a boy, unless you got very strict rules. I have not seen that in any apartment. But in today's time, partying during COVID and all that is harmful it will have an
Yes.
adverse effect on the community as such, you know. So
Yes.
there are certain, since we are skilled at listening to people and, you know, making them understand the other person's perspective, this is very, very mediatable,
Okay.
these
All
sort of
right.
aspects.
Be-
Shanta,
because
you
we
want
have
to add
lot
in
of
something?
comorbid, old people, elderly people, comorbid, like me,
Yeah,
cancer plus
yeah,
diabetes. So we
yeah,
get little bit flustered, why all these people coming and going now? They touch the same lift,
exactly.
they use the
Exactly.
same
Very
rain.
understandable, Uma. Very understandable. So if they're not willing, see, you can sit down with them. Somebody from the association, if you have one, can sit down with them and say that we are not, sort of talking about your choice of how you lead your
Yes,
life. It's your
yes,
lookout. But at the moment, since we all, so many senior citizens who are comorbid are there. So, and
yeah,
this, it is very important that, and what is social distancing, mask,
yes.
everything is very
Wearing the
important.
mask, especially
Yeah.
wearing the mask. They don't do it.
So all that is important. So please understand from our point of view. So let them come out with, I mean, like, we have to see what they say to that. You cannot put, senior citizens and children and like, other people to harm because of your
Yeah,
lifestyle.
yes.
Shanta?
Yeah, that's what I
Thank you.
also feel. The management committee member going to be a neutral person because the complaint is coming from another
Yes.
co-tenant or a co-owner. So maybe you
Yeah.
can just call both of them together and explain to them that you are a neutral party. So you would like this to be solved by talking to each other. I think that will work. As Rukmani has said, mediation is the only process which will support you in this kind of matters.
Yes. But
Thank
unfortunately, as I told you, see, we have few of us seniors staying here. Okay. All the others are
Okay.
techies, all the others are youngsters. And their sawal is, you see, that's the other question I wanted to ask you. Only if the association is registered, we can enforce all this. Otherwise, we can't, they say. Our association, unfortunately, is not registered. Is that so?
No.
Uma, we can, you know what, we can take this question offline. There are ways of sorting
Okay.
this out. We can take it offline.
Okay.
you.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Uh, if I may put it this way, there are levels of difficulties, levels of disputes which come in.
Yeah.
Some which probably are a little more easier to handle by sitting down, people, talking to them, kind of thing. But there are, but when things get tricky is when there is a commercial aspect
Yeah.
to it, or this one. That's
Yes.
where it it really becomes very difficult to handle. And there are some queries which are coming on that aspect as well. So the first query is by Vidya. Vidya, would you like to ask a question? Or
Yeah. Hello, Ms. Rukmini and Ms. Shanta. Very happy to
Yeah.
have this session and a lot of
I,
insights that we have about this process now. So my query was, though I understand that, mediation is something which we can go through directly without having to go to the courts first, right? So that is
right.
what I understood, and that is a perception which got cleared by this session. Otherwise, I was always thinking it is through the courts, and then the court directs you for mediation, and then you go for mediation. So, if I understood right, it is a direct approach. And secondly, also when you mentioned that there are no, it's an informal process. Now, when there is some sort of a semi-commercial interest, let's say it is to do with a recovery, okay?
Hmm.
It's a recovery of whatever amounts, maintenance defaults and things like that. And those
Hmm.
amounts are, as you gave an example of 35 lakhs and so
Hmm.
let's say something around that kind of recovery, and minimum we know that it is rightfully due to us. Okay, so now the courts will take their own time. Uh,
Hmm.
Here also, if it is an informal mediation and assume that both parties have reached certain terms and conditions and agreed to, but after you step out of mediation, what if the party again defaults or goes back on that on their words? How do you handle these kind of things? Because they, some of, for example, we have a dispute with our promoter and or other landowner who owns his own share of this thing, and we know that this is due and he knows it is due, and this year because of some ego or so the amount is withheld, and is there any way to resolve it? The person is very well versed with all techniques of legal and mediation and other things, so you may go for mediation, agree on some terms, and after you step out of it saying that everything is closed, things are not working out, it is not getting implemented, whatever the terms agreed were. How do we handle this?
Shanta, can you take this?
Yeah, sure. Vidya, when you are not in the court and you have approached mediation, whatever the terms you agree upon becomes an enforceable contract. Okay? So, but you want that to be enforced in a court of law, we can convert this into a conciliation award under the Arbitration and Conciliation Act. So what happens, once they are there, both the parties will agree to the terms and the conciliator also will in that case, we have to send a notice to the other party and the other party has to agree to conciliate, and then we do all the mediation process. End of the day, an agreement is entered into between the parties that is converted into a conciliation award. That will be an arbitration award on agreed terms under Section 30 of Arbitration and Conciliation Act. This is enforceable in the court of law, even though you had not gone to the court. It's a separate proceedings under the law, under the law of Arbitration and Conciliation Act. So it is enforceable. If you feel that they might go back on their words, then you convert it into a conciliation award.
Okay, thanks. That's really.
I would just like to add something here. See, maybe you mentioned something like you had mediations before. It's different if you're just negotiating between each other. It is the presence of a third party, a neutral, which makes a difference. And in a mediation, you have settlement, as Shanta very rightly pointed out, you have settlement agreements which are enforceable in law. And after walking out of the mediation, as I told you, in camp in 5 years, we've never had anything which was reopened. And as Shanta very rightly said, it's an enforceable contract. And they know it because the advocates are present. They know it when they're signing it. The consequences of violating those terms and conditions.
Okay. So even for mediation, there is a need for advocates. Is that right?
We always, at our center, we always say that please come in with your advocates, or at least have them, because see, we all are lawyers. All of us, most of us are lawyers. But as a mediator, because of neutrality, we cannot give legal advice to either of the two parties. It's not possible. So it would be better if you come in with advocates, but some parties insist, I want to participate on my own. We always tell these parties that if legal advice is required, you will need to go to your lawyer and get that legal advice.
I would like to add one more, that even under the Commercial Courts Act, Vidya, any commercial matter, now the law itself contemplates pre-institution mediation.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandhya.
So, to summarize, it's sort of binding agreement when we go in for mediation.
Yeah.
So it can be.
There is an agreement drawn out, signed by the parties, and if the advocates are there, with the advocates, which are, binding on both of them.
So I just had another question, Mani. Like supposing if it is mutual consent for divorce, and then they go through the in the court also, they send them right for conciliation, arbitration, and all that. So
not
is it better to go here first or that process first?
No. What happens in a mutual consent, if they first come in for mediation, they draw the terms and conditions in private mediation. Based on that, the lawyers draft out the mutual consent petition, and that is filed in court. And if there is a mutual consent in court where something has gone wrong, they can opt to come in for private mediation, or they can go to court, and if mediation is always there, they can go to court and ex-mediation.
Yeah, but
It could
as
be
you said,
either.
it takes longer, right? I mean, supposing if you
For
meet
mutual
them and
consent,
advise them.
Sandhya, can I request you to moderate the session so that all the questions in the chat box can be answered in that, in that order?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, I think a lot of queries are coming up on from the RWA side, as I mentioned. So Mr. Yogesh Aldur, would you like to ask a query? Or the query is, can you please throw some light on how RWA can mediate with the builder to resolve issues? Now that is almost every association would have gone through this, is facing these issues and have been at loggerheads with their
loggerheads, always,
yes,
always. Yeah.
And
Shanta?
Yeah. See, one thing is that you can approach any private organization which is doing mediation, or if you can have the RWA association can have a mediation cell where a neutral third party can come in and mediate between the builder and the RWA. But you have to have a cell for mediation.
But how do we get the builder to come to the board at all? Come to the table rather? That can be challenging.
Yeah, it could be challenging, but sometimes you see, even under the RERA Act, if you see, the authority can recommend to the government for having a mediation cell by the settlement forums or the consumer or the promoter. So you can, suppose you are not able to get the builder for mediation, at camp, we also make effort from our side to bring the party for mediation. We also work, we do a lot of convening so that this can be done. We can try and bring the builder for mediation.
Sandhya, I would just like to...
One more thing also, I said, when you are entering into an agreement, sale agreement and all, if you can have a mediation class, you can, suppose you insist on a mediation class with a builder or something like that, then that will help you, so that, because when there is a class for mediation, automatically the builder has to go in for a mediation before looking at any other legal dispute resolution methods.
So this is unfortunately not a part of
it is there in our agreement already. It is there in my agreement already, Mrs. Chappa. I had also foolishly went and invested in a Yelahanka site at my age. Now the builder, first of all, the progress is not there. And then we entered into a buyback agreement. And that, of course, also is not effective nowadays. They're saying COVID time. And they also passed on that property development to another builder. So now,
but under the RERA Act, if the property is being given to the another builder for development, there is certain percentage of all the persons who has already entered into an agreement have to give their consent, right? So you can make a complaint to the RERA authority also. Do you have a mediation class in the buyback agreement?
Yes, we have. Yes, time frame.
Then why don't you? Then why don't you send
15 of us who's prepared. Yeah.
Okay, then all of you join together, send him a letter calling upon him that under this class, we would like to mediate our whatever the difference of opinion we are having it. He has to, since there is a class already, he has to come up on that. He has to come for a mediation.
Okay.
Maybe you have to make certain efforts.
They put us to the Reliance Bank, who are charging a home loan of 14%. EMI is 14%. So all this lot of
can I again request? Sorry, can I? These are very specific issues, so maybe it should be taken offline. Club, so that others also get a chance to put forth their questions.
A lot of us are facing that with the builders. A lot of us.
Sure.
Uma, we can take this offline.
Okay. So mediation is better, right? Okay.
Yes, I I just want to add, Sandhya, to your question about RWA and the builders. See, these problems are very common. And you know, CAMP has a desk at the Consumer Forum and the State Commission, the Consumer Forum. And we have seen a lot of RWAs who file complaints against the builders. And then we have mediated a lot of cases in the consumer forums, and quite a few of them have reached settlements, because over there the judges in the consumer forums tell the builders, no, you have to go in for mediation. And we have successfully done these mediations.
Okay. Typically, what kind of issues help in the consumer courts? What kind of issues come up which have been resolved successfully? Just to give a guidance.
To best of my knowledge, the builder would have promised, a clubhouse, what do you call that, water, that waste treatment, something, so many car parks, those kind of issues, where
even delays, and then there is a difference in the area which is given, or you have not been given the proper car park which you really have opted for, all this. And then clubhouse is not coming up. The facilities promised are not all those things can be taken.
Okay, thank you.
Any deficiency on the part of the builder.
Okay, good to know. So there's a query from Mr. Ramakrishnan. I think, who will ensure the mediation outcome is within the shadow of law?
Both of us can take this. Shanta, you want to go first?
First thing is that we always advise the parties to have the advocate's help. Okay, your advocate will ensure that it is within the shadow of law. And as far as the mediator is concerned, especially at CAMP, we follow the CAMP rules. We have to do mediation as per law only. So it will be taken care of by the mediator. Also will be conscious of that it is being done under the shadow of law, and your lawyers will also be monitoring it that it is within the shadow of law.
Okay, thank you.
Is it okay?
Thank you.
You would like to add something? You would like to add something?
That's why we say that, please come in with your advocates, because as mediators, we are not in a position to give you legal advice, to say that, if you want something, you cannot go beyond law. You have to stay in the shadow of law. So the lawyer is there to advise you as to what is possible, what is not possible. Legally.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Yogesh, yes, this session is being recorded and will be uploaded on the website, BAF website, under the gallery. So you can see all the BAF ki Baat sessions over there, and you can share it forward too. Yeah, there's a query from Mr. Srinivasan. Do you conduct session for RWA on conflict management? Is this different from, because RWA is a volunteer, basically it's a volunteer job, and of course it's a thankless job, so probably training them on how to handle these situations.
You mean conflict, a session on conflict resolution? This is interesting. We've been called at various places to conduct, we very often do conflict resolution sessions in corporates with law firms. So this is the first time. I mean, if there is nothing impossible, right, Shanta?
Yes, certainly it is possible.
Actually, our apartment has got 542 flats, and the communication law is 2 to the power of 2 into the power of number of communication, and each one has got their own whims and fancies. And when we impose some discipline, they say you are very strict, you are bossing us. And more the problem is we have a lot of tenants. Our apartment has got almost 90% tenants, and only 10% are the owners. So the people who rented out, they are least bothered. about their property here, and we are suffering for them, taking care of their property, and then getting all this conflicts with the tenants. So what I thought is, first of all, if we get equipped with the knowledge of how to handle the conflicts, it will be a smooth sailing.
It can
We
be
could
done.
have a session.
Yeah, we can have. Maybe you can call some of the tenants also for the session, so that also they will also have an idea.
Yeah, this is a very
We'll try to arrange as soon as possible.
Yeah, but the problem is tenants, they also don't stay on for years, unlike us owners. They are like Dari Hokar now. They come and go. That's another issue.
Yes, Suma. Yes, Suma, thank you. Yeah, this is a very common problem. I mean, given the way things are changing, there's a lot of people coming in and moving out, kind of thing. This becomes a recurring thread in almost every association. So, as Mr. Srinivasan is asking, is there an SOP or something on how MC can deal with conflict and dispute management?
Yeah, we could have a session. That's what I said. It's a very interesting proposition. We have sessions for different categories all the time as to how to handle conflict, as to how to handle disputes, what is the best way of resolving them. This is also possible, Sandhya.
Yeah, that will be a great
Thank you,
session to have. Probably we should have one more session on that. Vidya,
Sure.
Vidya, you had another query?
Yeah. Yes. So earlier we spoke about resolving disputes through mediation between the developers or landowners or the and the managing committees. Now the other problem is also dealing with the urban local bodies, that is your DISCOM, BWSSB, BBMP, and so on, right? Fire department. These are all bodies which provide various services and charges for those various services. And what we find increasingly is that many of the charges are passed on sort of arbitrarily. A law is introduced today, and the penalty, because you don't have it, the penalties start. Whereas any law, as we know, is sort of prospective and not retrospective. Some can be voluntarily taken up, some cannot be. It comes under the purview of at the design stage or at the builder handover construction stage and so on. So there is a lot of conflict there, and a lot of penalties and all are getting charged. On the other side, all examples, of course, are for water there is penalty. You are using some Kaveri water without any checks or anything. The issue has raised. While it is resolved, but then we are not able to recover the wrongly charged penalty, be it from water board or the electricity board. Secondly, also we also hear that across Bangalore, a lot of alleged encroachment kind of issues, right? Whenever there is flooding, a new exercise starts, and that is there. But they all know that after 30, 40, 50 years of development, there is no way that you can take that part of land back and all. And so all the issues to protect our own, premises, they all go to courts, and they are there for years. So how do we, are these issues also amenable to mediation? And would ULBs be open to this kind of a discussion?
Yeah, to add to Vidya's query, see, some of the acts have been much come into place much before Bangalore changed into or morphed into what it is today. Like this one, BWSSB, she was talking about, the Water Act was done in 1965. And of course, your KSRA, KOA came in 60s and 70s. Today, suddenly they wake up and say, okay, I have this clause. Why don't we just go ahead and go against the practice of decades and implement it? And residents at the end of it, or the associations, are bearing the brunt of it, while who should have done that in the first place is no longer in the picture.
Shanta, you want to take it?
Can there be media? So can there be mediation when we are dealing on these kind of issues with the regulatory local authorities?
See, what happens, in government matters, mediation does not work.
Unfortunately, does not.
Unfortunately, does not work. So the only...
And before Shanta proceeds, government is the biggest litigator in our country.
Litigators, yeah. So maybe we have to wait for the mediation laws to find out whether there is any provision for mediation for government cases. Generally, it's just not possible. It's only the PIL which works, not otherwise. It's only the litigation.
So even, I mean, they some of these bodies do also have their own quasi courts and all that. So there is no sort of mediation which goes through that.
No. Invariably, it doesn't happen. Even in DERA, the authority can advise the government to have a mediation cell. That's not happening, right? They talk about conciliation, but it has not happened so far.
Okay. So that is a tough one. We'll have to.
Yeah.
Yes. I was hoping
A change
for
in
a
government, a
different
change in corporator councillors. I think that's what is needed right now. If mediation is not
that
possible
is a
for us,
different.
even that.
citizens,
That
paying the
also may not.
taxes.
That also.
Sandhya, please complete. Yeah.
That also may not yield the result we are expecting, Guma, unfortunately. But has there been a precedent anywhere in the country where mediation has worked in any government department? Has a precedent been set?
As I know, I have not come across. Yet. Maybe the government was planning in direct tax matters, but even that has not really been put into work, I think, right? It's not yet come. Direct taxes, they were thinking about it before sending the notice to all the tax, but so far it has not happened.
I hope there is.
We do hope that it will come. There will be a change.
But do you think it will? I mean, is there any hope?
I sincerely hope it will.
Given the backlogs
we have to bring about a change. That's all.
Yeah, given the backlogs and as you said, our courts are crumbling. Will government think? I mean, there's a lot of changes which are happening. Can we expect something, or is anything in the pipeline?
Yeah, because the recommendations have been made to government that there has to be such kind of, even the government cases should be mediated. Let us hope that something will certainly come soon. We are also praying for it.
I think in corporate decision corporate management, there is something called as the decision matrix, which is sort of reviewed time to time to see what are the decisions that can be pushed downward, and so that only critical things go through the extra rigor which it has to go through. So something along those lines is perhaps what is needed to sort of make the judiciary effective, efficient, productive, and so on. So any developments in that you would like to share? I mean, is there some silver lining that citizens can look up to, that things will start working when you go to courts and you will get justice on time and so on?
Very
wishful thinking.
Yeah, wishful thinking, but we are hoping that there will be mediation laws soon. Maybe as an association, you can give a representation to RERA authority that you would like to have a mediation cell, wherein you can bring in all your RWA difference of opinions and disputes. Maybe if you go as a group, that can work also.
Okay, thank you. That is a very good suggestion. I think we will. We've been talking about it. Maybe we will also interact with you to see how we can go about it as well.
Certainly.
Thank you so much.
We're really happy to support you in that.
Yeah, I think all the BAF, Sandhya, at least all the BAF, whoever is been now with us during this COVID time, let's all get together and then go to the court and insist that we need a mediation cell. I think it's high time we do that. Let's take the lead.
All RWAs have to get together and push this. Maybe things will change then.
Yes.
So
Let them climb the wall, like how they're making us climm the wall. Let them also climb the wall.
Yes, thank you. If there are no more queries, can we end the session now?
I've also said, can you share their contact number, mail ID? Because I know RWS now will go on bothering them for mediation. So it helps if we have their mail ID or telephone.
You have our website also, www.campmediation.in.
Yeah, Sandhya will put it up myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put it up on the chat window. Yeah,
Thanks.
they're available.
We'll take appointment and come. Don't worry. You're not going to barge in.
No. You're always welcome. You're there. You're always.
Any offline questions, please feel free to approach us.
Yes, you can call us and then you can get your whatever queries you have, you can get it clear. You can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We also thank you for
Rukmini and
yeah.
I think they have embarked on an important topic, and given the kinds of disputes we have been facing, I think we need more such sessions to understand and therefore different enable ourselves from with different tools to be able to fight this in a manner which is helpful to both parties. So thank you, Rukmini. Thank you, Shanta, for a wonderful session. Look forward to more sessions with you.
Thank you, Sandhya, for giving us an opportunity. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful session. Thank you so much.
See you all next week. Thank you.
Telephone numbers, please.
Thank you.
Telephone numbers.
Pardon?
Uma,
Telephone number.
I'll send it to you later.
Okay. No issue, because I got the website.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Rukmini Saham.
Oh, thank you.
You want my number?
No, Rukmini Saham.
Sure.
Is Shanta side.
Mine is 9988
Yeah.
60
Yeah.
530
Yeah.
79.
79. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Shanta.
Thank you.